Smith corks one into right down the line. It may go. Go crazy, folks. Go crazy. Drives one drive. Way back. It might be. It's moving. Putting a high drive in the left. Back goes the Craig. He's at the track. He has it. And the Cardinals world champion for 2011. A little bouncer slowly towards right. He will glove it to Rizzo. It's in time. And the Chicago Cubs win the World Series.
This is the Team of Rivals podcast. No insiders, no anonymous sources, just passionate analysis from the bleacher seats. Here are your hosts, Ron, Pete, and Elliot.
All right, folks. So we are gathered here on a late night on Saturday to mourn the passing of Mike Matheny's managerial run with the St. Louis Cardinals. It was shocking news tonight, and nothing in this world could bring two Cub fans on to, one, call in on a cell phone, the other one to get in front of their laptop at 11 p.m. their mid Central Time.
Yeah,
to talk about nothing else. So this is crazy news. Also joining us on this special edition is Chris Lawless, my co-host from the Cardinals Nation 24/7 podcast, has jumped on too. Guys, I don't know if I'm ashamed to admit this or not, but the first whisperings of this I heard from the Cubs broadcast out in San Diego, and I'll tell you why I was listening to that. My only chance at having a peaceful weekend was to hope that the San Diego Padres would somehow beat the shit out of the Chicago Cubs tonight. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but that's where this thing broke. And then I immediately turned to Twitter and all hell's breaking loose. So, Pete, Elliott, thank you guys for being flexible tonight and jumping on here. And Chris, you too, man. I know it's I'm not really sure what to go with this. This is totally unscripted. This is about as raw as you're going to see us on Team of Rivals podcast. I mean, you see us pretty raw every week, but this is the most raw. Chris, how you feeling, man?
Oh, man, I have definitely felt worse. The whole thing with how you got your info. I mean, I didn't get it from watching any damn Cubs game. but no, I mean, in all seriousness, it's a big deal. It's something that when we say we're surprised by it, we're more surprised probably that front office decided to actually pull the trigger on it. Not that we didn't see this coming, because we've talked about it for years.
Yeah, we have. Pete, I know you're calling in, which is rare. We usually don't do it this way because I know you're out tonight, but. Pete, what are your thoughts just initially as a Cubs fan, as hearing us talk about this for a few weeks? How's this land on you? He is still there, right?
Pete, you on mute?
Sorry, man. Somehow I didn't unmute. I hope that you guys don't end up getting fired up by this the same way that the Reds have gotten fired up by Jim Riggleman replacing Brian Price. That's the last thing we need, is another hot team bearing down on us.
I don't think this is going to translate into a string of wins, though. I think these are two different. No. I think these are two different situations entirely. But Elliot, real quick, your first impression of what happened tonight as a Cubs fan, as talking to me every week, and knowing as much as you do about the Cardinals and what's been going on. How's this one soaking in?
My first reactions were. I still can't believe I have, with all the Fire Matheny stuff going on, my first reaction was, God, I can't believe they did it in the middle of the season. It's not like the Cardinals to want turmoil. And this is turmoil. This is something that's going to be focused on by all of baseball, because it's right before the All-Star break and not during the All-Star break. I mean, maybe this gets overshadowed by no, it's not going to be overshadowed by the All-Star game. I mean, this is what everybody's going to be focusing on. It's crazy, because the thing with the Cardinals is the head coach has always been kind of the test of time for them. They've been there for years. I mean, what is this? The fourth coach since what, 1980? Is that what Pete said? So,
right.
Yes,
right.
Yeah. I mean, how many coaches have the Chicago Cubs had since 1980? I don't think I have enough fingers and toes. So, I mean, honestly, I didn't see them doing it now. I figured they'd wait to the end of the season. They're still above 500. I know it's one game. I know they've been struggling lately, but holy crap. And my kind of thoughts are, what does this mean for the rest of the season? Do the guys kind of regroup for each other, or does this become a dumpster fire?
It's interesting, Elliot, what you brought up there, the fact that they didn't want to overshadow the All-Star game. That they don't want moves happening during the All-Star break. They don't want it overshadowed. And it almost seems like DeWitt kind of felt like he had to do it now, because if it happened tomorrow, then it overshadows the All-Star game. And the last thing that they want is to come out of the All-Star break having just fired their manager and have that be the lead story as they're heading into the series against the Cubs. I mean, at least this gives it 5 days to blow over a little bit before they head into Chicago.
That's true, but it's still the story's still going to be coming out of the All-Star break as soon as they get to Chicago. Is Mike Matheny is now gone. Here is now new interim manager Schildt. So, I mean, that's what's going to be talked about. And
did you say Schildt? Schildt?
Schildt.
Hey, Chris, correct him on that.
Schildt, isn't it?
Schildt.
Yeah, it's not Schlitz. I know you guys are obsessed with that up there in Milwaukee. I know it was such a great beer.
Schildt happens.
Yeah.
Schlitt's gonna happen.
Wait, hold on. Who said that? Is that you, Chris? Damn it! I was the last person I would expect to say that.
So, I mean, and obviously the worst thing that could happen is after the All-Star break, the Cubs sweep this series. This Thursday, Friday, doubleheader, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
Yep.
Chris, let's you and I talk about this real quick, and I'll ask you Cub fans, because I'm so interested in you guys' perspective on this, being on the outside and hearing what we've bitched about all year, and hearing, Pete, you and Elliot we're all on the same Facebook account for Team of Rivals, so we've all heard the stuff, right?
Yeah,
Chris and I are embedded in this Cardinals Nation group, and Chris, more than I do, more than anybody, the hatred by a few, and it might not be by a majority, but by a few who take up a majority of the let's call it the FaceTime, the comments about Fire Matheny. It's been happening. It's been one of your hot buttons, man. You even did videos about the whole Fire Matheny movement. So now that it's happened, I gotta ask you: are you like, okay, it finally happened. Now I can sit back in your truck there, light one up, and be like, oh, thank God, I don't have to hear this anymore. I mean, what's going through your mind tonight? Because this is unexpected midseason. We expected this to happen, but you and I, knowing the Cardinals, knowing John Mozeliak, knowing they don't like to make waves, they don't like to do anything bold, we really thought that if this would happen, it would happen in the offseason, but it happened one game before the All-Star break. So I want to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's kind of like we're shocked by it, but at the same time we're expecting it to. The fact that it happened, I liked Matheny. I thought he was a good baseball guy. He just strategically wasn't any kind of a great manager, and so I feel bad that he's losing his job. Not happy about that, but this gives the Cardinals a chance to kind of go in a different direction. The fact that Mabry went with him. A lot of the fans that are blaming Matheny and blaming Mabry, well, they're not going to have that excuse now. The problem is we do still have the same players that we have, and with Schildt as an interim manager, that's not really, I don't think, the end game plan. So yeah, I mean, we can kind of sit back and say, yeah, it finally happened. But there's so many pieces left that could unfold and that need to unfold before we really have a direction of where we're headed.
Oh, I want to ask my two Cub fans on here, Pete and Elliot, if you guys are, Pete, if he's still able to hear us, I want to ask you guys, what do you think here? Do you think that this was whatever happened tonight, we're going to pull the trigger on this, or was this before the game?
I personally, I think that it is what happened this afternoon, because unless I'm mistaken, Matheny still had his post-game press conference, and you don't do that if the guy's fired before the game. In fact, I don't understand why you would. If he got fired before the game, why do you let him manage the game? Why do you send him out there?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it happened after the game. And we had talked about this before, and this is not an I told you so, but I have a strong feeling that what we had discussed previously is what happened. That either Mo or DeWitt or both went to him and said, "All right, look, this is enough of this. It's time for Mabry to go." And Matheny said no. And he walked out the door with him.
Well, he's been defending Mabry up through the last week plus, right? I mean, he got
the
most fired up you see that guy is when he attacks his closest friend. Now, I want to say this before we keep going through the show, which I don't know how long we're going to be tonight, probably a lot shorter than we are typically, but I will say that I really enjoyed Mike Matheny as a player. He was a good Cardinal, Chris, and I don't know if you remember back in those days and when he joined the club in 2000 through 2000, I believe 4. He was a player with them before he went to San Francisco. But I mean, Mabry was a good Cardinal when he was with them too. I don't take anything away from those guys when they were players. Matheny was the leader on the club. He was a really smart baseball guy when he was a player. And when he took over, which I've said it on our shows before, when he took over after Tony La Russa left, that move at the time at least made sense to me. The way I could rationalize it was because Matheny was similar, kind of more like a stoic, all business guy, and he was used to the way the Cardinals did things. And in 2012, they still had a lot of those players there that had grown up through that system, that way of thinking. And so when he took over in 2012, it made sense to me. But since the roster's turned over, since baseball has changed, all these other clubs in the National League Central, the National League Baseball in general, have caught up to the way the Cardinals are thinking. Not that they were the. All right, so
is that the boy?
We have another guest joining us, but I want to finish my thought here real quick. When he took over, it made sense in the world, all the sense in the world, because he'd taken over a culture and a clubhouse that was Tony La Russa style, which he was used to. He was embedded in that. But as the rosters and years have gone by, it's just not working anymore. So I think this is what we're seeing right now. But I want to welcome on Josh Potter, I believe.
Yep.
Okay, cool. It's Chesterfield number, man. I just wanted to make sure I had the right guy. So Josh Potter's joining us now. He's from Arch City Media, and he's also working on the Two Birds on a Bat show. He's supposed to be a guest on our show in a couple weeks, but I think given the news tonight, I want to hear this guy's take on it. So Josh, as this broke tonight, I don't know how you heard it, but
it's been crazy.
Yeah, so right, to say the least. How did this land on you? Before you answer that, I want to let you know that we have Pete and Elliot, two Cubs fans on here. They're giving great outside perspectives on this, because we've been talking about this almost all year, that we thought this was going to happen, and we have Chris Lawless on as well. So all
right.
So give us your thoughts, man.
So, well, first off, I was working tonight. I work at a restaurant and got off work and, was flooded with notifications, including texts and stuff from, guys with Two Birds on a Bat. Yeah, I mean, I would like to say that I don't feel shocked, but I am. I don't know why I feel shocked, but I sure do. And it's definitely going to be interesting. I mean, it's something I've told my buddies, hey, there's two ways of going about these kind of things. It's doing it when you do this stuff kind of mid-season. And if you hire within, kind of promote, like, I think Schildt got the interim job.
Yeah, that's a report.
Yeah. So if you hire within, what's really changing? What voice is really changing? Because we know all the coaches hold meetings before the game, and they do the lineup. They do, who's available as a pitch, who's, all that kind of stuff. Benji kind of broke that down in one episode for Two Birds on a Bat. And so, my thing with promoting is, what's changing. And then if you hire externally, then that guy's got to come in and basically, I'm not saying he's not going to know anybody, but at the same time, he's got to learn what didn't work before. He's got to go through all the past stuff, and then he's got to figure out something that does work. And he's got to learn where players are going to hit, where players aren't going to hit. So, and I say hit because that's been, the biggest thing that's been wrong with this club. So I think those are the two ways, and it's going to be interesting to say the least.
Yeah, interesting. And I think the shock, at least with Chris and I, and probably with Pete and Elliot too, being Cub fans, is that this seemed like a very not front office way to do things mid-season, especially like one game in front of the All-Star break. You would have thought, right, Josh, that if it was going to happen mid-season, they would wait to the All-Star break, give guys like 4 or 5 days off, and after the All-Star break and all the pomp and circumstance from that, and then they would announce it. But I think they had enough tonight. So
I only saw a part of it. It rain delays and all that, and then I don't even really know what happened. So we lost 7-2, or what was it?
Sorry, my
8-2.
My son has infiltrated the podcast again, and I just want to get his quick 30-second take on this, and I'm gonna have to let him go. But he started singing because he couldn't hear you guys talk. Go ahead, Braden. Tell us what you're thinking right now, real quick.
I'm the happiest 13-year-old alive.
Oh.
I thought, no way they fired Matheny during the season.
Yeah.
This greatest 11 o'clock night I've ever experienced.
Okay.
I'm so happy we've lost. The Reds have outscored us 17-3.
By the way, Josh, when I say I'm going to let him go, he just keeps going. Just to let you know, this is one of those things that he just keeps going. Braden, so I know you can't hear. We have like 3 other guys on the call right now, or 4 other guys on the call right now. We're all talking about this. So real quick, you've already expressed your happiness, but I'm just curious from a 13-year-old lens, who do you think is going to take over? Do you think all of a sudden tomorrow, like everybody's going to start hitting magically? Not on your MLB, the show, in reality.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to be like the Patriots of baseball.
Patriots of baseball.
No way.
Oh, God.
I don't know. We'll be better, but there's no way we're making the playoffs. We're 1 game over 500.
We are only 1 game over 500, which was actually, strangely enough, if you rewind the clock back 1 year, Pete, remember we did a mid-season show. Both of our teams were 43 and 45.
Yep.
So did you just throw up, Josh, a little bit? I mean, you all right?
No, it's just bringing back memories.
Wait, the Cubs were too?
The Cubs and the Cardinals at the same time were 43 and 45. Exactly. Well, not exactly 1 year ago, but pretty close to 1 year ago.
At the All-Star break.
Wow.
Yeah, heading into the break.
Pete and I had the most dumbfounded episode we've ever had.
And that's saying
there's
something.
a chance.
Yeah.
Brewers, please win the division. That's all. That's my goal.
He's anti-Cub at this point, guys. He's just like, if the Cardinals aren't going to do it, the only way I can exist is if the Cubs don't win the Central, and that's his.
Hey, ask Braden if he saw what happened.
I'm just going to call
Braden, hang
on.
I'm passing on a question from the group here to you, and then we're gonna have to jump off here. But Pete, go ahead and say it again one more time. Braden, stand by.
Is Braden aware of what happened in Pittsburgh this afternoon?
Braden, are you aware of what happened in Pittsburgh this afternoon?
No.
Well, you might want to check your scores.
Why did the Brewers get smashed by the Pirates
They did,
again?
6-2.
Twice.
Hey, what?
They lost,
which is my favorite number if you're a Waterboy fan, 62.
They lost.
I remember that scene.
Swept in the doubleheader.
All right, B, I'm going to jump off here soon. I'm going to call you back at your house, all right?
All right. Too many home runs, too many strikeouts. The Pirates and Reds smashing the Brewers and the Cardinals.
Here we go.
Kyle Schwarber and Javi Baez in a home run derby.
You're in hell right now, right?
Yes, I really am. If you were to tell me this.
All right, B. I'm gonna call you. I'm gonna call you in a few minutes after we jump out. This is good.
One more statement.
He doesn't care. All right.
If you were to tell me this 1 year ago today,
yep,
I would have looked at you like you were the craziest man to ever walk this earth.
Thank you.
Like, I need some sleep. I need just.
All right, B. I'll call you in a few minutes. All right.
All right.
Love you, buddy. Bye.
Is this a dream?
Still going. He's still going.
Yeah.
All right. I'll call you in a few minutes, bud.
Hey, so
all right, love you.
So I want to kind of go on something that was just mentioned in. So Matheny's gone. They're probably not going to hire anybody this year. There's been a lot of call for Joe Girardi. Joe Girardi is a pretty similar kind of coach as Mike Matheny is. As Cardinals fans, would you like to see Joe Girardi come in for the Cardinals, or would you like to see somebody else? Because as I remember, Joe Girardi was dismissed because he could not communicate well with young baseball players.
I want to, Elliot, I think that's a great question. And I want to ask Josh this, since he's been plugged into Jim and Benji and those guys. I want to deflect that question onto you before I answer it.
Yeah, I mean, and I can't really speak for them. I mean, I know we've tossed it around a little bit, and I don't think either of those guys are really, for or against, Girardi coming in. My thing is I didn't obviously, with the Yankees being in the AL, and we don't live close to them, but I wasn't aware that Girardi didn't get along with the younger guys or couldn't communicate well with them, but because I thought a handful of them did pretty well under him, right? Am I mistaken?
No, you're right.
Because they
won
made
91
the playoffs.
games the year he was fired. In fact, Steinbrenner said that even if they had won the World Series, they still would have considered getting rid of him.
Wow. See, then if that's honestly the case, then I don't think he's the right guy. I mean, you look at our team, and after next year, we don't have Waino. We don't have, you got Fowler. God knows what's going to happen with him in the next couple weeks. Or if, even if he just stays on the team, does that change? I don't see. We just have way too many young guys that, like Bader, even Wong, I'd consider as a quote unquote young guy. Guys like that, we can't have a coach that can't communicate with them. So if that's really what everything was about with Girardi and the Yankees, then we need to just keep it as is, hire within for the rest of this year, and move on. But I do know that Girardi might be a possibility mid-season. I couldn't tell you for sure. I don't know what that would help, to be honest with you.
Chris, I want to ask you the same question to you.
Kind of like what Josh said. I mean, there's got to be some red flags, that the Yankees didn't retain him. So, I mean, if it's the communication level and the fact that we do have so many young guys, I know you and I have discussed on our show that Memphis is basically infiltrated our team. So to have a guy like Stubby Clapp potentially come in, you'd think he's already got a pretty good relationship with the players that are currently guys that we're going to keep. That would be our young core guys that have played under him. But I mean, as a fan, I mean, we don't know. We're not experts, and to handpick who we think is going to be the next Cardinal manager to do anything is kind of just a shot in the dark.
Cubs fans,
what about Mark McGwire?
Oh, Pete,
he actually has managerial experience. He's a hitter. Would you want him to come home if you could convince him to leave San Diego?
You know what? I don't know his evolution from, he agreed to become a hitting coach reluctantly after many years. And I think he struggled with, the fact that he had cheated. He had done performance enhancing drugs. I think he struggled with that, but maybe he came to terms with it when he agreed to finally step back into the spotlight, become a Cardinals hitting coach. Now he's a bench coach for San Diego. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, is he strategically enough? Is he strategically what they need? Is he good enough with young players that come up? Now he's mentored several young hitters, fringe hitters, guys like Skip Schumacher and Alan Craig. I mean, he's worked with a lot of people over the years, and he's improved some. Some haven't worked out, but I don't know how I feel about that name. I wouldn't be that wouldn't be a name that I'd be like, oh, hell no. But I'm not sure that's what they need. If they are truly going to change direction, if they're truly going to retool, renovate, I'm not sure that's the guy. Now I like him, but I'm not sure that's the guy. So Josh, how do you feel about the same question, Mark McGwire?
Yeah, I mean, kind of what you went off of with the whole using PEDs and stuff. I mean, honestly, I haven't since McGuire's left, and not I just don't think the Cardinals really talk about, like, Cardinal Nation talk about him all that much. So that's actually an interesting question that I think, one of us should do a poll on and just kind of bring it up, because I really haven't heard a whole lot about Mark McGwire since he's left. Everything, and I think a lot's got to do with, Pujols leaving too, because that's probably big. That's been the, latest big story was Pujols leaving within,
right,
lately. But I wouldn't say head coach, maybe as a hitting coach again, because we had him for a year, right?
We had him for a couple of years, right? We had him for, I think we had him 2010 and 2011.
Yeah. So I would bring him back in as a hitting coach. I wouldn't go as far as head coach, but at this point we can really do whatever. And I'm kind of, being around Jim and Benji and the guys over there. I don't, it's going to be interesting because I don't see a whole lot changing. I actually think that with this mid-season firing squad, I think it's going to keep going. I think it's going to be a fire sale. I think that kind of was a hint to Cardinal Nation that, hey, we're going to be sellers. So, and again, I would actually like to say that it's going to be a positive or an addition by subtraction is how I'd put it, because, getting rid of maybe Carpenter, maybe getting rid of Pham, maybe getting, people out of that clubhouse. Because again, the players do the playing, coaches do the coaching.
Yeah.
And, from what Benji has told us about Mabry and what Jim knows about hitting and, the off the side, off the record book, kind of not in the public eye hitting coaches that do travel with, teams. If a guy's struggling and he calls his hitting coach and say, hey, I need you out in Philadelphia to come and help me work on my swing, after game, before game, on the off day, whatever it is. So it's, that's why I've been kind of, teetering either way. I couldn't care less if Mabry or Matheny got fired, but at the same time, I would understand if they did. So, I think heads might roll in a player standpoint too now, because we've let go three coaches. Let's kind of, I wouldn't say rebuild, but I would say let go of a few more big names and see what we can get for them, and just kind of change, I guess, maybe the culture. I don't even know if those are the right words, because Mose came out and said that it's not a culture issue, but he could have also just been blowing smoke. But that's what you get for being an outsider, I guess. You know what I mean? As a fan. So
yeah.
So, does Bud Norris lose his job as the guy who reports on everybody?
Oh, hell yes.
Oh.
Sorry, I had to go there.
Chris, take that one.
Oh, that's
a legitimate question.
Actually, kind of is.
Chris, take it.
Well, I was going to say, what's even worse than that is Matheny's still going to be warming up Bowman, or trying to.
Oh, yes, he is. Yeah. He is.
He's gonna be like, Mike, you no work here no more.
You think he's got the direct line to the bullpen?
He might.
Okay.
I have no reason to believe he doesn't. I mean, yeah, this is a. I know you're joking, Elliot, but it makes me wonder, like, what are the texts going to Mike Matheny tonight from his players? I mean, clearly they all have his cell phone number. Are they reaching out to him? I mean,
well, he's not getting one from Dexter Fowler. That's for fucking sure.
Well, maybe not. I would bet that he will get one from Dex.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. So
yeah,
I mean, Dex will text him and ask if he's in the lineup tomorrow.
and then have a smiley face behind or a LOL.
Yeah. The crying, laughing.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll work out well.
So
right.
would you guys have rather
seen this whole firing thing take over? Go ahead.
Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, go.
No, I just think Carpenter is going to have the hardest time with this because that was Matheny's boy. So that's why he might be the first to go, and he might be the best package we get, from one of our players is Carpenter. So,
I think that's a really good question, Josh, and I want to kick that over to our Cubs fans on here that watch us from the outside a little bit and hear us talk about it. But Pete and Elliot, you guys divvy this up however you want. But if the Cardinals are one game over 500, they clearly. I think most rational people know that it's going to take multiple moves to fix this team. And those might not be possible before the trade deadline. In fact, it's likely it's not possible before the trade deadline. It may not be possible in the offseason. So if the Cardinals are going to do a renovation, and I'm not talking about a tank it for 4 years. I'm talking about, hey, we've got some guys that can pay back, and we maybe get young people that can help us next year, the year after that. So who do you think from the Cardinals roster, looking from the outside, who do you think is the most expendable? Who do you think they will deal? I just want your perspective on this. So Pete, go start.
Well, I think I agree with Josh. I think that Carpenter is probably the most attractive piece for a contender because he can slot into a number of different positions, and he's clearly fixed whatever was wrong with his approach at the plate early in the season. So he seems like he can be a valuable contributor, either as a starter or somebody off the bench, kind of one of those super sub guys like Ben Zobrist that can really contribute to a team throughout a run to the playoffs and through the playoffs. I also, I might be intrigued to see if maybe they don't deal Miles Michaelis, say, hey, we've got him locked in for 3 years. We're not going anywhere this year. We don't know if this renaissance is real or if it's just a flash in the pan and the league hasn't caught up to him yet. So let's flip him like the Cubs did, with their signings for a couple of years there, and see what kind of grade A prospects we can get again for a contender who's looking for some starting pitching. And let's jumpstart this retool now, because I don't see you guys. No offense, I don't see you guys making the playoffs this year. So if you're not making the playoffs, don't tank it, but be strategic and figure out what you can flip in order to get some valuable assets that are going to be ready to contribute in 2019.
Yeah.
Elliot, same question.
Yeah. Carpenter's probably going to be the first one to go, but God, I wouldn't be surprised to see Colton Wong go either. I mean, I could see you guys, because you could get some really good prospects and maybe even some almost ready MLB guys for Colton Wong. And I think he'd probably be pretty easy to replace. So I probably see Carpenter going first, and then I see somebody like probably Colton Wong going. I mean, you need to use somebody who's valuable. And besides Carpenter and Nicholas, it's Colton Wong, I think, because of his age.
And his control too. I mean, he has a pretty team. Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he has a pretty friendly team control for the next 4 years, right?
Oh yeah, he's got. Well, and first off, Michaelis is a 2-year contract. I think it was like $12.5 million or $12 million.
So they got the same control that they have for Ozuna, effectively, right?
Yeah. So Ozuna he's going into arbitration again next year, or like this offseason, and then after next season, he'll be a free agent.
Right.
Colton, I think, is a free agent in 2020. If I'm not mistaken, maybe it's 2021. It might be 2021. But either way, the thing with Long is and it's been his hitting. It's been his hitting. So getting rid of the hitting coach and getting rid of the assistant hitting coach, that might be, they might extend till the rest of the season, and then if nothing changes,
just to
maybe
see what
then
happens,
in the
right?
off season,
Yeah.
get rid of them.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point. I mean, that could affect a lot of things, guys. I mean, they may want to see what the change in the clubhouse in the hitting approach from the hitting coach and his assistant. They may want to give some kind of birth to see what these guys do under different leadership, under different tutelage. So that could impact what they may or may not be willing to do in the near term. But Chris, same question. I mean, if they continue, if they do this renovation, I mean, who do you think on the current roster right now? Who do you see them deeming expendable, and what do you? I'm not asking what you think will get returned. That's a question for Kyle Reese next week. But who do you think is expendable on the current MLB roster?
Well, I think they kind of nailed it with, like, you would think somebody like Carpenter, but we've kind of talked about too, where like Jose Martinez to the American League to DH, Tommy Pham could be an attractive piece maybe for a club. I mean, what sucks is these guys are struggling. It's like their stock is down.
Right.
Somebody sees Colton Wong's defense and they're like all over it, but does a team really want to cough up much for a guy that's struggling to be 200 hitter? I think as far as like the young core that we have, I would like to maintain as many pieces as we can. But if I'm front office, I'm taking calls on whoever. Name your price and I'll listen at least. Why not?
Yeah. Let's go round table here real quick. Starting with you, Josh. Like, who's untouchable?
Sorry, what was that? You kind of cut out a little bit.
Who's untouchable from the Cardinals right now, as far as if they have to do a major overhaul? Like, who's untouchable?
Yeah. And I called my buddy on the way home from work and was kind of talking to him, and I said, I think the only untouchables, well, the only guys that aren't going to go are going to be Ozuna, DeYoung, and Yachty from the infield and position player wise. I think Carlos and I think Flaherty's damn well near untouchable.
Yeah.
The way he's I know the home runs kind of got him in trouble a little bit, like what Gifford said on your podcast the other day. But I think he's almost untouchable. Other than that, and Hicks, Hicks I wouldn't even consider as untouchable. I think he very well could go in a big trade. But like I said, I think with the whole midseason firing like this, it's kind of a hint of what we're going to get during the trade deadline and, the weeks leading up to it. So I think Ozuna, DeYoung, and Yachty are the only three really that are untouchable in Carlos. So it's, other than that, best package I think is going to be with Carpenter, though. The way Pham's been hitting lately, it's going to be hard to try to get a package out of him at 30 years old and injury prone. And he's been really outspoken to the public, letting everybody and their brother know about how, he goes back into the cage once he gets pulled out of the game and starts working on his swing for another 2 hours, which is the most latest thing that came out. I thought that was a little odd. He's really, so I think his stock's down. He's really into his head, so I don't think that helps him out a lot. Or the Cardinals trying to get a package for him. Let's see. Yeah, I think Carpenter's probably our best bet to get anything in return, and I still don't even think it's going to be nearly what we really think. And it's just interesting that either Elliot or Pete said something about getting a decent load for him. I think actually, and I'm glad a Cubs fan said it, but I don't think that's actually what's going to happen. I just don't see a huge, because the guy has been proven in the leadoff spot, and other than, so if he's a bench player for another team, or if that's how another team wants to approach the Cardinals and have him as on their roster, then I don't think it looks too appealing for the suitor, if you will. So, but I think that's probably our best bet is Carpenter being the best package and only about 3 untouchables.
Yeah, that's a really good point you bring up about him. Is he's been one of the best hitters in the National League since like the middle of May till now. But if somebody doesn't need that leadoff spot, if that's already locked in, he's already struggled being a 3-hole hitter. Like, what else as an opposing team or prospective team you're going to trade him to? Like, what do you see him helping out at? Do you go
exactly?
Do you go?
Yeah.
Hey,
I mean, his defense has been decent, but you still see his throws to first base at third, and you're like, oh God, that just looks. I mean,
reminds
somebody
you of
that
Brett Wallace,
never played
right?
baseball makes it look like knows
Right.
that it's not supposed to really look like that.
looks like Hunter Pence at third base.
Exactly.
Oh, Jesus.
Exactly. Maybe a little more agile, but not as awkward.
I clearly
But,
expect Hunter Pence one night to show up at my house with blood on him and say, "Hey, can I lay low here?" So Pete,
I'd be like, "Here's the keys. You'll never see me again, bud."
take my wife's car. Just go. Right. Pete, if the Cardinals are gonna like fire sale, no, that's not right. They're not going to fire sale. I don't think that's what they're going to do. But if they are going to renovate, we'll just say that. From a Cubs opinion, you and Elliot both, who do you see as being most valuable and expendable from the Cardinals' current roster? I agree with a lot of what Josh just said, so I don't have much to add beyond that. To be honest with you, I think Carpenter is definitely a piece you can move. I think Martinez would be appealing to a select handful of AL teams. But beyond that, I'm not really sure. Colton Wong to a team that already has a good offense, but shitty defense might be a really attractive piece. So we might underestimate that one a little bit. But I want to hear you Cubs fans. What do you got to say? What say you?
I think what could bring the greatest return is obviously the thing that you're not going to get rid of, but that's some of your young pitching. Especially to a team that might not be in contention, but that is position player heavy, kind of like the Cubs were, 4 years ago, and that is looking for some pitching to balance that out to where they could afford to trade some position prospects. You're talking about Jordan Hicks and Flaherty, and before he went down, Reyes. You guys have a wealth of young pitching that it seems like is either just a few months of experience away from getting it on track, or who knows, maybe it's a change of scenery kind of thing where they need to be in a different system. But that's who I think is the most valuable, but that's not who you're going to trade. As far as like who's untouchable, if it was me, nobody would be untouchable. I would be listening to anybody. But we know that's not going to happen. The Cards aren't going to trade Yadier Molina. But if somebody was to call and make an offer, I think you'd have to listen.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you, but I don't think the front office will listen to anything on Yadi unless it's something ridiculous that they cannot turn down. Looking to bring in a veteran catcher to help a young team move through the playoffs, a la David Ross. I don't know.
Grandpa Yachty?
Grandpa Yachty for sure. And I almost think Jordan Hicks. I mean, you don't find a guy.
Sorry, I was on mute. Grandpa Yachty, really?
Grandpa Yachty.
You're right. You're right. It should be Poppy Yachty.
Poppy Yachty. There you go.
Big Poppy Yachty.
Hey, that's what Contreras calls him.
Does he?
Shit, he's got respect for the guy.
Poppy Yachty.
Yeah, it should. Freaking.
So, come on I see
Get
Jordan
his name
Hicks.
right. It's all-star.
I'm sorry, it's
starter Wilson
Contra.
Contreras.
Oh, shut up, Pete. You such a dick on the phone. I'm going to cut you off right now.
Yes.
8-time Gold Glove winner. And 2-time
Gold
World Series
gloves.
champion.
Gold gloves are based on reputation.
Okay, Jeff Passan.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They are.
I love it how you love analytics when it suits you. Go ahead, Elliot.
Anywho, so I almost feel like Jordan Hicks isn't a guy that they'll trade. His arm is just it's something that you don't see quite often, and he kind of reminds me of Chapman a little bit. He's young. He needs a little bit of tutelage. Yeah, you could probably get a lot for him, but the guy fucking throws fire, and there's a lot of guys who can throw between 95 and 98, but there's not a lot of guys who can throw over 100.
Well,
it seems to be a crutch for a lot of guys to catch up to in Major League Baseball.
No, you're right, Elliot. But if it's a guy that can only throw straight balls that hard, they tend to. I mean, major leaguers figure that out,
right? And I was kind of getting to that. And the only thing that he needs an off-speed pitch, and he needs it bad. He needs to either learn how to throw a slider, or he needs to throw a changeup, something that's going to throw these batters off, and he needs to be able to command it well. But because he can't, that it would be probably the only reason why they may give up on him and try and get the most out of him now. But yeah, I mean, besides Yachty and maybe DeYoung, I think everybody else is kind of out there.
They won't do it. Josh, they're not going to trade DeYoung, right?
No. I'm saying no. They won't
wouldn't-
trade
I wouldn't
DeYoung.
say they would.
Yachty, DeYoung is they're the untouchables. Everybody else is out on the block.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you, and I agree with Pete and everybody that's chimed in on it. But what did we not leave? We might have left Chris out on this. Chris, in all honesty, like who's not touchable to them? I mean, just name the few players that they aren't going to deal.
Well, I know, like, for me personally, when I see somebody like Harrison Bader out there hustling the way that he does, I wouldn't want to part with him. But, I mean, there's nobody really on the team that's untouchable that if a team offered you something that was irresistible, you had to take the offer. I mean, you'd be a fool not to listen. But, no, there's a lot of young talent. Flaherty is one that I would hate to see go. I think he's going to have a bright future, but you know, we kind of value these young guys to a point where, you know, like Reyes, you know, a couple of years ago, if we packaged Reyes and Carson Kelly in a deal, we could have probably landed any name out there, and neither one of them are bringing anything to the current team. So it's kind of like, I mean, feast or famine with the offense, but it's kind of like that with the prospects too. You get a Ledmus Diaz come up, and everybody thinks he's going to be the next great shortstop of the future, and that didn't work out. Now we've got DeYoung, but there's really, aside from Delvin Perez and the minors, shortstop's going to be kind of a weak position for the Cardinals. So I could see DeYoung being one of them for sure.
Yeah. So I think the last thing I wanted to ask tonight, I mean, unless you guys, and I'll open it up after this last question, you guys ask whatever you want, but I want to start with my Cub fans on this one. The whole coaching staff at this point in time, Chris and Josh, for the Cardinals has been turned over. So next up, you'd have to think is Mo and Gersh, which I'm not really sure Gersh has got a fair shake here. I'm not really sure what he even does. But the whole coaching staff has been turned over. Is Mo feeling heat now more than ever? And do you think a change is coming there if they miss the playoffs again this year, which it looks like they're going to? So I'm going to kick it over to the Cub fans first before we Cardinal fans chime in. So Elliot,
do they miss the playoffs? Is that your ultimate question here?
No. Well, let's just say this: the whole coaching staff has been turned over at this point.
Jose Oquendo is still there. He is
no. He rejoined this year.
Okay.
So did Willie McGee. So they basically, right, guys? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. They have a whole new coaching staff this year. Starting tomorrow.
Right.
It's all been turned over. So the next rung up is Mike Gersh and Mozeliak. So if they miss the playoffs again this year, if they continue playing this poorly, Cubs fans, you think a front office change is inevitable?
I think so. After missing the playoffs the last few years and the downturn that we have seen in the quality of baseball in St. Louis, I feel like the change needs to happen from the top. And usually those are the ones that happen during the offseason. So I feel like it's just biding the time away before we see that happening. I feel like it needs to. I feel like to get that whole total culture change in St. Louis, if that is the ultimate goal here, I feel like that Mo and DeWitt need to go. And maybe they don't deserve to. Maybe this isn't all on them. I don't know. But from the view from where we sit and from where fans sit, that change needs to happen. And if it doesn't happen, and it doesn't matter what they do next year, if they come out and they don't make the playoff again, then it's going to happen. So you might as well get ahead of it now and just start the process. And maybe you say, hey, this is going to be a minor rebuild, and this is where we're starting. So that you can kind of bide yourself some time if you do need to get yourself a few years before getting back into the playoffs.
Elliot, I know you're right, and it makes me want to reach through the screen and just punch you right in the face. And Josh and Chris, stand by because we'll let you answer this too. But I know he's right, but it makes me want to. Somebody dropped off. Oh, hold on. Hello, you are on the Team of Rivals podcast.
I got dropped off, man.
That was not as dramatic as I expected it to be. Guys, Cub fans gave their perspective. Is Mo gone after this year if they don't make the playoffs? I want to kick this over to the Cardinals fans right now. Josh, starting with you. If they don't make it, if they continue this downward spiral, is Mo next? Everyone else under him has been removed. Well, not technically, right? He's got a GM under him now. He's got a scouting director. Yes, we get that. But I'm saying, like, the whole coaching staff has now had a turnover from a year from now, right? Right. If you rewind the clock back a year plus, maybe a year and a month plus, it's all been turned over. If it still doesn't work, is it him now?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it from a step, like, think about it. So going into the season, ending last season, we needed, a middle of the order bat. Mo went out and got that. Mo went out and got a couple other things that, we, thought we needed. I personally think Mo does an awful job at signing free agents. He's had a horrible track record starting with, Johnny Peralta had a couple of good years, but he signed him to a 4 or 5 year deal. Mm-hmm. In the last 2 years, he was basically non-existent.
Right.
And then you got to go with Cecil, awful.
Don't forget
Fowler,
Leak.
awful. Guys like that. And so, I mean, you look at it that way.
Yeah, and don't forget Mike Leak. Mike Leak, right? Another one.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, he had that guy the year that we traded him. I'm pretty sure he had, an outstanding April. But then after that was just, I mean, he was the inning meter kind of guy that we wanted with Lance Lynn and, stuff like that. And then we ended up trading him.
I think he thought he was getting like a Jeff Suppan type of guy, but
Exactly. And and this is my thing with Mike Leake is, well, he's a ground ball pitcher, and we had a shitty defense.
Right. So
how do you see that benefit? So Mo, it's kind of hard to see because back when short time ago, but back when we had Matheny and Mabry, I know for a fact, like those two in the off season, I mean, they're hunting buddies. They grew up, hanging out together and, shit like that. So I couldn't see Matheny without Mabry, and I couldn't see Mabry without Matheny. So, I'm not surprised there. So I don't know what kind of relationship DeWitt and Mo have together. I really don't see Gersh taking the fall for a whole lot of things because I really don't think he does anything. To be honest, like I don't see him, on shows like, Danny Mac has his podcast Scoops with Danny Mac. You don't see Gersh on there. You don't hear a whole lot from Gersh. So I really don't think Mo might be the next to go. I have no idea. But if you think about, the step-by-step process and kind of, we went and got these, things that Matheny, quote unquote, needed, and it didn't pan out. So we got rid of Matheny and Mabry. We got, guys that should be hitting now. So we got rid of the coaches. Now let's, it might be Mo, but I don't know Mo and DeWitt's, relationship. If it's anything, like Matheny and Mabry, then I don't see it happening. But DeWitt's definitely not going anywhere. He's the owner. That whole family, right. Nobody's buying out the Cardinals. It's not I can't even think of it's not like LA where they went bankrupt. It's not going to happen in Cardinal Nation. They're going to still go and buy, $9 beers, $10 beers, and, pay outrageous for tickets. So,
well,
it's really hard.
It's really hard for me even to criticize the ownership because since they've taken over in 1995, I mean, we've had a pretty good run.
Oh, yeah, to say the least. I mean, I think that's why, Cardinal Nation as a fan, like, that's why they've had somewhat of a short leash, coaches wise. I mean, this has been going on for over a year now. You missed the playoffs once. Okay. I think that was a game. We didn't make the playoffs by a game in 2016. Yeah. 2016. And then 2017, I think it was another, 2 games or something like that. And then, and then you got this year's where it's funny because we were 40, you said we were 43 and 45 last year at this point in time.
Yeah. Similar.
So it's kind of funny that we're a game above 500 and, I don't know. It's definitely going to be interesting to say the least with Mo.
As we said the other night, though, St. Louis has the 6th softest schedule in baseball or in the National League?
Nope, don't remember that.
We said
after I did the chug.
I think we talked about this on Thursday night. So
was it after I did the chug with?
Obviously, since you did it first.
Okay. Yeah, just wondering about that. All right, so guys, I know we're running a little bit late. I thought this was gonna be a short, 30-minute episode, but it's gone beyond that. But this is a deep topic, and I'm sure it's gonna carry over into next week. And I know that Josh is gonna be talking about this less than 48 hours with Jim. He's gonna be fired up.
He's already going on.
Yeah. And I texted Jim tonight, and I said, "Hey, we're going on live. Here's the number. Jump in, give us your thoughts." But he's out with family or something, man. I don't want to bug him, but I do want to bug him. Josh, put a bug in there. Hey, anytime Ron talks to you, you need to answer.
I mean, I think he's just kind of, when he's at home with his family, he wants to spend time with his family. Right now, I think he's just laying in bed on his laptop. I can just see him right now, just kind of,
I don't want to envision that, but yes, I got it.
You know what I mean.
I know.
Sorry,
what you mean.
Jim.
I know what you mean. Chris and I love that guy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I've already texted the guys. And I was like, God, Monday is gonna be one badass episode this is gonna be. I mean, like I said at the very beginning, I'm very surprised that I'm shocked right now because anybody could foresee this if we go ahead and lose 2 or 3 right away from the Reds and it's ugly. I mean, you can't be shocked, but I am. Here I am. So I think that's kind of where everybody's at, and we're kind of just waiting around to see what happens. It's going to be. I kind of want to go to the game tomorrow just to see what the fan turnout looks like.
And anybody who's going to listen to this, anybody's listening live or is going to listen to the audio version, I got to say that the Cubs Cards Cast and Pete, you and Elliot and I we did a combined cast a few weeks ago, but they had a terrific episode, their last one on Friday. I didn't know this, but Dan Curry, who's their Cardinals fan on there, had been a reporter, reporter in many different roles, but kind of like an investigative type of reporter. That's why he asks the questions he does. And he had a lot of involvement in digging into that Mark Saxon report about, the whole Norris Hicks thing. And before that, even the Matheny Fowler not communicating thing. If nobody's listened to that one, check out their last. Whoa, you broke up there. Say it again.
I read this afternoon. I guess Saxon gave the complete recording of his interview with God, I don't remember who he gave it to, but they're going to post it online on Monday. It's going to be available. Yeah, so that's the whole interview, unedited, that led to that piece is going to be made available.
Oh, that'll be good.
He is standing behind his story.
Quote unquote unedited. Just
wow. All right.
Quote unquote
juicy stuff.
By the way,
which could shed a lot of light on what happened tonight.
Yeah. And maybe part of that story coming out, maybe on Monday we hear that, hey, this is the kind of news that should have stayed in the clubhouse, and because it didn't, and because of the things that Matheny was doing, maybe they say, hey, we didn't know about it, and that's not something that we agree with. This is a part of the reason why we have released him.
That could all tie together. I'll be interested.
I said it. I said it when the guys, because I wasn't able to go to the podcast on Friday when they did their for Two Birds on a Bat yesterday's. And they talked about, Mark Saxon, that whole, debacle and stuff like that. And
yeah.
I asked, on the Facebook post of it, I asked, do we even know who leaked this information? I mean, it obviously wasn't Hicks and it obviously wasn't Norris. I mean, maybe Matheny, but then why is Saxon
right?
Go, I don't
right, Josh.
So
somebody told him something. Like he wouldn't have just made this stuff up.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. So I don't know.
And the Athletic.
Well, I tell you what, guys, for sure, the shit that's happening right now in the media is way more interesting than how they're playing on the field.
That's true.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So what you're saying is that right now, Dexter Fowler is the first half MVP for the St. Louis Cardinals.
He may be trumped by Bud Norris. I mean, just.
Yeah, well, he got the ball rolling.
He got the ball rolling, but I think Norris got the ball rolling way before that because the Cardinals signed him. We were all like, why the hell are we signing Bud Norris?
That's true. It could be.
Yeah. Chris?
Well, since we're not going to get to see any more hashtag fire Matheny, do you think we're going to start seeing hashtag trust the process? Hashtag bring back LaRussa? I mean, I can see both of these guys.
The group is not
by the morning.
Chris,
I think it's going to be hashtag fire Mo next.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris, the group I haven't even checked in tonight since we've jumped on here, but I can only imagine.
Oh yeah, it's a flood of the same.
There'll be some people that be like, Jesus has come, and we are now going to win.
Oh yeah.
And there'll be other people that are like, level-headed, like Ben Cerruti.
They're either never satisfied. I mean, you know how it is. And every fan base says that. You want to say 1%, but hell, if you're in the group, it's way more than 1%.
Well, we love them.
I think that's been the thing with everybody though, is especially with us over at Two Birds on a Bat. It's like, what do you think's gonna come of this? Firing Matheny and Mabry. Like, what do you really think? I mean, you hate seeing the Cardinals lose right now. What do you think's going to happen when a new manager is promoted or hired on, and you think we're just going to start winning games left and right? I mean, it's still the same players running out there. Yep. What do you think's going to happen?
Yeah.
So
hearing a different message or a different text message before every game is not going to all of a sudden make them magically figure out how to hit in situations. It's not going to magically make them figure out how to run the bases effectively. It's a roster problem too. But I do believe that in the clubhouse, they need a new message. They need a new direction. And I think that the time has come and passed that they change that over. They did it mid-season, which is shocking, which is why we're talking tonight. But I agree with you, Josh. It's not just the manager. They have roster issues, major roster issues.
Yep, and that's why I mean, you want to say renovation for the Cardinals, but it might be a full-blown fire sale. I don't.
I say an enema.
I don't see it. Yeah, it might be. It might be a few guys, but
yeah.
We're gonna hear Mike Schildt on the next episode of Mic'd Up.
Is that so? All right, we'll have to get him on here. I'll have to give him my number. All right, gentlemen. Josh, thank you for jumping on tonight. Love to get your perspective on this. My two guys from Team Rivals podcast. I know that they have no incentive for being on here tonight, but both of them are hanging out, and it's past midnight, even in the Midwest. So, guys, appreciate it. I know that if Joe Madden got fired, I'd be on the line with you too, and I'm hoping that comes soon.
The Cubs are up 11-4 against San Diego, so I think we're okay.
Well, fuck you guys.
And Javi Baez now has 71 RBIs before the All-Star break.
Tied for first. They're now a game and a half clear.
Yeah.
It's a good day.
It's a good day.
And Pete just makes it extra dickish.
He does.
All right,
I can't stand that fucking guy.
You are the worst and the best, unfortunately. Chris, thank you for jumping on. I know late nights for you. Hope everything's going well. You haven't given me any news lately, but hope everything's checking out.
That's good.
And Josh, thank you for jumping on late tonight. I know it was short notice. I just hit you up like 2 minutes literally before we went on. So thanks. And we'll be talking to you again, I think, right before the trade deadline.
Oh yeah, I had to write down some notes because as we were talking, I was thinking, whenever we start getting into the expendables and the guys that are untouchables and stuff like that, my mind started going those places. I was like, no, I need to save this for here in a couple of weeks whenever we get going. But so I got a couple of things on that, but no, I really appreciate you reaching out to me. And yeah, as soon as I was actually in the car 5 minutes away from home, and I was like, absolutely, it's always a blast talking baseball, and I really appreciate you having me on and sharing my stuff and sharing Two Birds on a Bat and being a big contributor in that way. So thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you, man. Chris, anything else to say?
Yeah, no. Pharmacy it happened, man. It really
That's
happened.
the best quote you've had in the last.
Yeah, I'm just kind of looking at the clock. I'm like, this really happened. I'm kind of like yourself. Is this a dream? Is this really gonna happen? Yeah, it happened.
Well, I think Braden's quote of the night is Schwarber and Baez in the home run derby, like questioning it and like, oh yeah.
Well, he's 13, so he's only grown up like his first 10 years of life was all Cardinals dominating everything, and so his last 3 years has been like
miserable,
like the Nazis took over, like they actually won World War II. So to him, he's unable to process it. Like he's still at odds with life in general.
He needs to watch that Amazon series if that's what he feels like.
Yeah, I don't think that would help, Elliot. I think, enforce the depression, and I don't want that on my myself. But Pete, thanks, man. I know you called in from outside. You called in from an outside line, so
yeah, good being on, man.
Appreciate it, guys.
You guys enjoyed this.
Well, this is our show. You don't have to appreciate being on. This is your show.
No,
yeah,
hey,
but you know, I'm out. I appreciate everybody else being on. How's that? I'm sure
that's much better. Thank you.
Yes.
And by the way, anybody listening still right now, we'll be doing a live show from Wrigleyville next week, which is what I need you to tell me about tomorrow, Pete. Yeah.
Yep.
I'll be there for the Cubs series, and then I will be in St. Louis, Josh, for the Cubs when they visit town. So if you're there, let's meet up here or something on Saturday.
Yeah, just let me know when, and I'll make sure I got my schedule cleared. And it's pretty easy to get off a serving shift, so over at the restaurant. So yeah, just keep me updated, and I look forward to talking to you guys soon here in the next week or so.
Or I'll
2 weeks.
Or I'll just find out where you work, and I'll just show up there and be belligerent.
Hey, you just do it. Do whatever you do. You know, like Jim says, stand how you want to stand, drink how you want to drink, buddy.
Yeah, all right, man. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it, man. Looking forward to talking to you in a few weeks. Pete and Elliot. Let's do this again live.
Let's do it again
next week, face to face. I'm looking forward to that. Chris.
Yo. Zazzle.
Zazzle.
Thank you. There you go, Pete. He did it for us. You didn't have to do it. You can find us anywhere. You can find us anywhere where you find podcasts, on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, and Radio Public. Did I get that right?
You did.
I don't care. You can find us on Facebook at Team of Rebels Podcast, on Twitter at Team of Rebels Pod, and we have a YouTube page, which we've sent the link out many times to anybody who's listening to this right now is obviously on it. So we'll just leave it at that. Guys, thank you so much for jumping on this late at night. I know this is an emergency situation. This was a emergency session of Congress. We all got together. I love it. I love doing this kind of thing. So thank you all. And we'll be talking to everybody again next week on all shows that are on here. So any parting words, anybody, before I hit this exit button?
Hashtag fire Matheny.
Boy, there we go.
All those counts are going away.
Start prepping your resume, Mo.
Trust the process.
Yep. We'll see Mo on LinkedIn. Fresh resume next week. All right, everybody. Love you all so much. Talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys.